You're listening to A State of the Union, estate planning made simple. Here's your host, Brad Wiewel, from the Wiewel Law Firm in Austin, Texas.
Hi, this is Brad Wiewel here with Texas Trust Law. We are doing our podcast today, The Estate of the Union. And I have a special guest. I have Zach Wiewel. I think we're related. Are we related?
I think so.
Last time I checked, this is my youngest son, Zach. Zach's the lawyer here with Texas Trust Law, and he's helping with this podcast. In fact, this is going to be pretty much his show today. I'll do some color commentating. And the topic today are wills of famous people. And it's very fascinating, and we all kind of like to look. I got an envelope yesterday to subscribe to People magazine. Holy cow. I asked one of our teammates, have you ever seen a People magazine? He's never seen a People magazine. I guess they're still out there, who knows? But we're all kind of curious about how other people have lived their lives and how their estate may go when they die. So we're going to get right into this. And Zach, you've done the research on this. Who's your first famous person?
So first today we're talking about Chief Justice Warren Burger, and he was actually a justice on the Supreme Court back in the 20th century, and he probably could have written a better will. The issue with lawyers is we think that we can write our own wills and we can do everything, but he only wrote a 176-word will, which didn't include most of the things that a will probably should have.
Yep.
It didn't appoint an executor, it didn't have any provision for taxes or for payment or anything, which is, when you think about it, it makes sense from our perspective because we see that all the time.
Right, we see, and this was a handwritten will.
Yeah.
Handwritten will. So any lawyers out there listening, nobody should do this on their own, of course. And this guy was the Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court, died in 1995, and did a handwritten will because he thought he was smart. And we have lots of people.
They are smart people.
Sure, they're smart
They do
people.
great legal work, but people don't want to think about their own death, so they just do it one day and write it down, 176 words, and
Right.
good enough.
And some people might use like LegalZoom and
Mhm.
end up in the same situation. So, and you don't want somebody talking about your crappy estate plan after you're gone because it makes everybody kind of think, gosh, Dad, you kind of dropped the ball. And I'm sure his kids kind of, that Chief Justice Warren Burger kind of dropped the ball, and he did drop the ball.
Well, spoiler alert, we have a lot of wills coming up that they did kind of
Balls,
do
we
yeah.
wouldn't be talking about it if everything was done well. So let's go to the next one. I'll take the next one,
Yeah.
and this is probably the most famous woman in modern times, and this is Princess Diana. And Cindy, my wife, and I are watching The Crown, and she's also watching the Andrew and what's his wife's name?
Meghan.
Meghan, there you go, thank you. Their little documentary, and it's hot stuff. So Diana passed away, of course, in a horrible car crash and left an estate of about $21 million. And 21 million pounds, that equates to $35 million. And left it to William and Harry, which you would expect that she did. But she also had this unique little thing that she left $50,000 to her former butler. And maybe kind of nice.
I'd like $50,000.
Sure. If you need a butler, he's available. But yeah, no, so she did that. She left it in a trust for William and Harry until they were 30, which is wise too. You don't want to give a young person too much money too soon. But it's a tragic thing. She a larger estate than I would have expected, and then she also left a lot of personal mementos to her 17 godchildren. So you weren't one of those either, I don't think.
No, I wasn't lucky enough.
Shucks. So anyway, interesting stuff, and Princess Diana is certainly a woman we're still talking about many, many years since she passed away.
Okay, well, I'm going to be talking about the next one, and it's actually a two-for-one. It's Harry Helmsley and Leona Helmsley. And if you don't know who they are billionaires, New York billionaires. They started and ran just giant commercial real estate operations in New York City.
And hotels and things like that.
Yeah, and
right.
you can imagine they own some pretty valuable property. And when Harry died, he gave everything to his wife, Leona. And when she passed away in the early 2000s, she gave a lot of her money to different family members, but she actually ended up giving a gift to her dog.
What was the dog's name?
Her dog's name was Trouble.
Trouble?
And he definitely caused some trouble. Brad, do you know how much money she gave to her dog Trouble?
I have no idea, Zach.
What do you think?
You know, we have people here that do set aside money for the care of their pet, and they may leave up to, you know, kind of pet, how long they're going to live, maybe $10,000 to make sure that the pet's good for the rest
dog
of
food
it.
isn't that
sure,
expensive.
not that bad.
She gave $12 million
Wow.
to her dog.
Wow.
And as you can imagine, her kids and stepkids, they didn't like that. They thought they were entitled to that money, as I probably would too if you gave all of our money to your dogs.
Yeah, sure.
And they ended up suing. And they got the judge to knock the gift down from $12 million to $2 million.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I think any dog can live off of $2 million.
I
for
would think
a couple of
Trouble was
years.
in good stead the rest of its life, and yeah, and they own I think they owned the Empire State Building, and she was, you know, bless her heart, that's always a nice term, right? Bless her heart, a woman who was universally disliked, and this is it was.
Well, we have a photo of Trouble too.
Oh, let's see
for
it.
everyone
Oh, let's
who's
see it.
watching
Good
online.
idea.
If you can see this is Trouble. He's cute. He's no longer with us though. He's $2 million did not save his life,
Wow.
but
I
made
tell
for a
you
nice
that.
life.
Yeah, made for a good story too, right?
Yeah.
So you may wonder, we'll just kind of take an aside here, how we know all this stuff, where this stuff's available. It's because these people all did wills. And when you die with a will, your will goes public. It goes in the court record. If you live in a paperless county like Travis County, Texas, or another county that's paperless, your will goes on the internet. And if you do a revocable living trust and it's funded, which means all the assets are coordinated with the trust, keep it all private.
Yeah.
The people that we're not talking about who were famous who died, a lot of them did have revocable living trusts, and nobody knows.
We have no idea what happened to a lot of celebrities' money because they did it the right way,
Right.
or at least in a private way.
That's right, that's right. So, I'll talk next about Joe DiMaggio, and I told Zach, as we were preparing for this, that a lot of people may not know who Joe DiMaggio was, but Joe DiMaggio was the most famous baseball player back in the 1950s. He played for the Yankees. He was known as the Yankee Clipper, and he still holds many baseball records from the day. He had the record for the most hits in a row, which has since been broken, but he's just an amazing guy. And he married somebody who was also famous. You know who he married?
Marilyn Monroe.
He married Marilyn Monroe. And it was a short-lived marriage, as unfortunately most of Marilyn's marriages were. But until he died, every week a bouquet of flowers was delivered to Marilyn's burial mausoleum. And he just kept up his respect and love for her, very sweet. When he died, he left his estate to his son Joe Jr. and his grandchildren, but he also left money to some great-grandchildren, and oddly enough, he left more money to 2 grandchildren than 2 other grandchildren. Why that was, we don't know, but we tend to caution our clients, try to be equal if you can. A phrase that I've used many, many times is that parents see fair as fair, but kids only see fair as equal. And if you want to go back to Christmas morning, you want to make sure the gifts were about the same number, all about the same height on the couch, and kids can come in and see, oh yeah, I get the same as my sibling. Joe didn't follow that path. I don't know what happened, whether it was a fight, probably not, it wasn't recorded, but it could have caused some family discord, which frankly, most people would prefer to avoid. Okay, how about your next one here is who?
So the next one is a famous actor. A lot of you have probably heard him or seen him. It's James Gandolfini. He played Tony Soprano on the show on HBO called The Sopranos. And he actually died pretty young, relatively speaking. He was 51, died in Italy, just as a heart attack out of the blue. No one expected it. And he is actually a really good story of what you shouldn't do, because he had about $70 million in his estate.
70 million.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So he did very well. But the issue is he had a 17-page will, And he ended up, of that $70 million, he paid $30 million of that in estate taxes.
Wow.
Yeah, didn't have to.
No, in
a lot
fact-
of it could have been avoided.
One thing about estate taxes to know is they're voluntary taxes. If you do the planning, you don't have to pay them. If you don't do the planning, you may pay them. That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah, so he gave everything to his wife in a trust, but the issue is it wasn't the type of trust that you do it to get a marital deduction.
Right, so if you leave money to your spouse and you want to make sure that they get the use of it and the benefit of it and can spend it and enjoy it, but they can't give it off to their new spouse. If they remarry, then you leave it to them in a marital trust. And if it's the right kind of marital trust, then estate taxes aren't paid until the second death. But it sounds like they were paid on his death.
Yeah, they paid, I mean, just under half of his estate went to the government when
Wow.
none of it could have theoretically gone there.
If you go into a good lawyer,
Mhm.
yeah, we're glad we didn't.
Glad we didn't draft that one.
That's right. That's right. If we had, be a lot more money in their estate, then everybody would be a lot happier too.
He also gave a gift to his 8-month-old daughter, so that is not great either.
And why is that not great?
Well, you can't give money to someone who's under the age of 18 or the age of majority. So what happens is if you give something to them, you have to get a guardian or put it in a special little trust until they can use it. So
Right.
until she's 18.
And so she gets all the money at 18,
Mhm.
and
I know if I got a lot of money at 18, I'd probably spend it on a lot of stuff. None of them would be college or law school. It'd be just,
unhealthy stuff.
oh, Lamborghini is.
Well,
I don't know.
that's right. That's right. That's right. The average inheritance in our country lasts, ladies and gentlemen, about 18 months, start to finish. And we've heard a lot of stories about young people getting money too soon. They go through it. Their life is ruined
Mhm.
because they got inheritance too soon. So certainly a good estate plan is crafted to leave money to a minor or even a younger adult, older, later when they're more mature and when they get control of it, they can use it, but hopefully they'll be better stewards of it. In fact, one of the things we do here all the time is leave it to adult children and minors, and when they become adults, divorce protected and lawsuit protected and bankruptcy protected. So when they get to be a certain age, they get control of it, but nobody could take it from them. So it's an option around here that we use all the time. A family wealth protection trust is what we call it. So it's something that you may want to explore as well. Okay?
Yeah.
I'll take John Lennon. How
Yeah.
about that? All right. So John, very successful, of course. He wrote a line in one of his songs, "Imagine No Possessions."
He had a couple possessions.
He had up to several possessions, I think, and he was married to, of course, Yoko Ono at the time he died, and basically left everything to Yoko. He had a son that I think has to wait until Yoko's gone, unless she's diverted some money to him. So, that's what happens a lot of times. Back to, quite frankly, built-in remarriage protection. Now, John divorced his first wife and married Yoko, but sometimes the first spouse dies and the survivor remarries it. Sometimes they get convinced to leave it all to the new spouse and disinherit the children of the first marriage, and
Sometimes. A lot of times.
a lot of times. So we can build in remarriage protection to minimize and maybe eliminate the threat of that. So good idea. Okay, and let me go ahead and because you got a big one coming up, I'm gonna take another one here real quick. A very famous person, George Steinbrenner. So George Steinbrenner was famous because he owned the New York Yankees, and he owned them for 37 years, and was, I think we can say, a character.
Yeah.
And George must have done something good in his life because he had millions and millions of dollars, and he died in the year 2010. The year 2010 was the only year that I know of, unless you go back maybe to shortly after the Civil War, where there wasn't an estate tax. So 2010, the law said if you die in this year, there's no estate tax. George died that year, and bless his heart,
Timing was great.
timing was great all the way around. So
And they won a World Series shortly after that, so.
well, there you go, George. Golly. So hopefully, I hope you're in heaven, George, looking down at us, and Good job on passing away. How about that? Okay, Zach, we have one more very famous person, very controversial, and that is Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
Talk about Michael's estate.
So Michael Jackson was a very complicated person. He had
Great way to say it. Great way to say it.
Had a lot of great songs, a lot of great hits, had a lot of personal troubles, and honestly professional and financial troubles when he passed away.
In fact, one of his widows, Lisa Marie Presley, just died.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You know, Michael died in 2009, and it was a big deal. I remember all the news had headlines about Michael Jackson's death. And there was actually a court case about his death because Michael, the government argued, had such a big estate that he had to pay estate taxes.
How big did they say his estate was?
The government said that it was worth just under $1 billion.
Makes sense, I guess.
Yeah, I could see why they would want some of that, money.
Sure.
The issue was that the lawyers for Michael's estate came back and said his estate was not worth $1 billion. It wasn't even worth $100 million. They said it was worth $2 million.
$2 million.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a gap of more than that, $998 million gap.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big gap.
Yeah.
What happened?
Well, it took almost a decade for the case to get resolved with the government and through the court system, and I'll kind of walk you through the main points of what happened with this. And so Michael actually, in his early days, was pretty good, savvy businessman. He had a bunch of hit singles. He also, speaking of the Beatles, had bought the Beatles catalog, and
that means he owned the Beatles songs.
he did.
Wow.
Yeah, for a period of time.
Nice.
He bought them for $47 million back in 1985, which is a lot of money.
Yeah.
But, you know, he sold half of the songs a couple of years later. Half, guess how much he sold them to? Guess how much he sold them for?
You know, I don't know, let's say $50 million.
About 77 million.
Wow.
He did it because he had to pay some debts, because, again, he was a good businessman in some ways, but not in other ways.
Neverland Ranch, all that stuff, had a few problems up there.
Yeah,
Right.
complicated guy.
Complicated.
But he also had his recordings from his own songs, like Thriller, and all the songs that he made in that, you know, went number
Sure.
one. Actually,
Maybe back to the Jackson 5. Who
yeah,
knows?
Thriller was number one for 37 weeks.
Wow.
So he had quite a bit coming in from that, but
Sure.
not enough to pay his debts.
Mm.
The issue is that when Michael died in 2009, he'd been in controversy for a couple of years about some stuff that, you know, wasn't too great.
Sure.
And when it came down to it, the lawyers for his side says that his reputation and his debts were so much, that he owed so much money to so many people that he wasn't worth $1 billion. They said he was worth $2 million.
So it ruined his reputation.
Yeah.
So it wasn't worth it.
Wasn't worth. What it was worth, they said, $2 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which is crazy.
What happened?
Well, again, after about a decade, the court issued an opinion, and they kind of met somewhere in the middle on the $1 billion versus the $2 million, and they said Michael, the estate was worth $100 million, which is, you know, a lot less than $1 billion.
Right.
And I'd be happy to save all that tax money and
Sure.
do something else with it.
Now, if the estate was worth $100 million, then the estate probably paid about $40 million in taxes. It's a lot of money in taxes, but it's a whole lot less than. And that goes to, I think, Zach, having quality lawyers.
Yeah.
I mean, he had very good lawyers.
He had great lawyers.
And
they really did a great job.
They did a great job, and estate taxes are voluntary taxes. Had Michael done more planning, he might not have owed anything. I think the moral here is have good lawyers. Okay, so there's a phrase that says there's nothing more expensive than a cheap lawyer, and so getting quality estate planning done correctly is critical in every respect, but especially if you're talking about taxes. And so here at Texas Trust Law, we have 7 lawyers. I'm the oldest, you're the youngest. We have lawyers in their 20s, 30s, 50s, 60s, and 70. And we can help you. And we offer a comprehensive consultation. We help when somebody passes away. We have a whole team here that just helps families get through the probate process and the estate administration process and trust administration process, so we can help with that too. We have one of our attorneys, Melissa Donovan, that helps a lot with special needs families, families that have loved ones with special needs. She also helps when somebody needs to get an elderly loved one care, and how does Medicaid work with all that, and she's an expert in that. We help with asset protections to keep your money in your hands and not in the hands of, quite frankly, a lawyer who wants to take it in a lawsuit from you. So this is all we do, but we do all aspects of estate planning and probate, and we can help you. So if we can help you, we'd love to hear from you. And we don't want to see your name on one of these lists.
Though I'd love to talk about it on the part 2 of this episode.
Okay, we'll talk about that in part 2 of this episode. But I think today the moral is do the planning, okay? Do it well, do it correctly, and quite frankly, keep it up to date. This is a game of gotcha, folks, and a lot of these folks got gotten. So your estate plan needs to be up to date, and we can help with that too. Zach, thanks for coming.
Thanks
Great
for
job.
having me.
Great job. A lot of fun. Interesting topic. One thing we do here at Texas Trust Law is we will give you a good experience. We want to help you. We have a Christian focus to what we do, and we have a great team and a great philosophy. We have a great website, texastrustlaw.com. You can email us at info@texastrustlaw.com, and you can call us at 512-480-8828 again for a complimentary consultation. Thanks again, Zach.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for watching, and thanks for listening. Have a great day.
Thanks, y'all.